The professional preparer. It starts with the notebook. You know the one I'm talking about. The expensive one. The one with the heavy, cream-colored paper and the leather cover that smells like promise. You walked into the store, or perhaps you browsed the premium stationery site late at night, and you felt a specific, physical thrill. You told yourself that this project, this big life-changing idea, deserved a designated place to live. A cheap spiral-bound pad wouldn't do. It had to be worthy of the words you were going to write. You didn't just buy the notebook, though. You bought the pen. The specific pen that glides perfectly, the one with the archival ink. Because friction is the enemy of creativity, right? You convinced yourself that if the tools were perfect, the work would flow effortlessly. You bought the feeling of being a writer, the feeling of being a creator, without having to do the terrifying work of actually creating. Then came the environment. You looked at your desk and decided it wasn't conducive to deep work, so you spent a Saturday clearing away the clutter. You adjusted the lighting, perhaps investing in a smart bulb that mimics natural daylight to optimize your circadian rhythm. You bought the ergonomic chair because you read a 15-page article about how posture affects cognitive performance and long-term focus. You subscribe to the calendar app that syncs with your watch, your phone, and your laptop, creating a seamless ecosystem of productivity. You color-coded your week: blue for deep work, green for meetings, red for urgent tasks. It looked beautiful. It looked like the schedule of a high performer. You bought 3 books on the subject of your project. Then 3 more, because the Amazon algorithm suggested them, and you need to be thorough. You need to be prepared. You can't possibly start until you've surveyed the entire landscape. And now, here you are. It is 6 months later. The desk is immaculate. The lighting is optimized. The calendar is a work of abstract art, perfectly color-coded. The books are stacked in a pleasing geometry, their spines uncracked, standing like sentinels guarding your potential. You have created the perfect ecosystem for success. You have built a cathedral to productivity. You are ready. You are so incredibly painfully ready. Except for one small devastating detail. You haven't done a single thing. You haven't written the first page. You haven't made the first sales call. You haven't recorded the first video. You haven't written the first line of code. You have built a shrine to the work, but you have not entered the temple. You are standing on the steps, polishing the door handle, terrified to turn it. This is the silent, invisible tragedy of the modern intellect. You are not lazy. I want to be very clear about this. Laziness is a lack of care. If you were lazy, you would be on the couch watching television, eating junk food, and you wouldn't care that the work wasn't getting done. You would be content in your stasis. But you are not content. You care deeply. You care so much that it hurts physically. You are exhausted. You feel like you have been working non-stop for half a year. Your brain is tired from processing information, comparing strategies, watching tutorials, and optimizing workflows. You carry the weight of the project with you everywhere. You tell your friends over dinner, "I'm working on a new project." You tell your family, "I'm just finalizing the strategy, it's almost time to launch." And you believe it. You aren't lying to them, you are lying to yourself. But deep down in the quiet, terrifying moments before you fall asleep, when the distractions of the day fade away and you are left alone with your own mind, you know the truth. You aren't working, you are preparing to work. And those are two very, very different things. One creates value, the other consumes time. One builds a future, the other builds a fantasy. We need to give this condition a name. a diagnosis that captures the severity of the situation. You are suffering from the preparation trap. It is a seductive, comfortable, and deadly illusion. It is the belief that if you just get enough information, if you just organize your environment perfectly, if you just find the exact right moment, the work will become easy. You are waiting for the friction to disappear. You are waiting for the fear to vanish so that you can begin. You are treating your ambition like a rocket launch, believing that you must check every single system 1,000 times before you can press the ignition button. But life is not a rocket launch. Life is a messy, chaotic scramble up a hill, and you are standing at the bottom, studying a map of the terrain while others are already halfway up, getting muddy, getting scraped, but getting higher. You have become a professional preparer. You are an expert at getting ready. If there were a university degree in setting up the environment, you would have a PhD. You know more about the theory of your field than people who are actually succeeding in it. But the market does not reward preparation. Life does not reward potential. The bank does not accept plans as a deposit. The world only rewards one thing: execution. The imperfect, messy, stumbling act of actually doing the thing. Think about the last week. Be honest with yourself. How many hours did you spend consuming content about the thing you want to do? You listened to the podcasts on your commute. You watched the YouTube tutorials while you ate lunch. You read the newsletters from the gurus. It felt productive, didn't it? It felt like work. It felt like you were moving forward. Every time you learned a new hack or a new strategy, you got a little hit of dopamine. Your brain lighted up and said, "Good job, we are making progress, we are learning." But that dopamine is a liar. That feeling of progress is a hallucination. It is intellectual obesity. You are consuming calories of information, but you are burning none of them in the fires of action. You are getting mentally heavy, sluggish, with facts and theories that you have no way to apply because you haven't built the vehicle yet. Consumption is not creation. Planning is not doing. Research is not execution. Listening to a podcast about marathon running does not improve your cardio. Watching a video about coding does not build software. This is the overthinking loop. It is a cycle of endless analysis that disguises itself as work. It convinces you that you are being responsible. It whispers in your ear, "I can't start yet. I don't know enough. What if I make a mistake? What if I choose the wrong platform? What if I waste my time on the wrong strategy?" These questions sound prudent. They sound like wisdom. But they are actually fear wearing a suit. They are stalling tactics. So you go back to the research. You go back to the preparation. You dig another trench of information to hide in, believing that one more fact will finally be the key that unlocks your courage. And while you are hiding, time is passing. The opportunity is cooling. The enthusiasm you felt 6 months ago, that burning fire that woke you up in the middle of the night, is turning into a stale, heavy anxiety. You look at your perfect desk, and instead of feeling inspired, you feel mocked. The blank page of that expensive notebook isn't an invitation anymore. It's an accusation. It screams at you. It asks, "Why haven't you started?" It reflects your cowardice back at you every single morning. The pain you feel is not a lack of capability. It isn't that you aren't smart enough. You are likely smarter than half the people currently succeeding in your field. You are talented enough. You have more resources at your fingertips than any generation in human history. The pain is the gap. the widening, screaming gap between your potential and your reality. You know what you could be doing. You can see the version of yourself that took action 6 months ago. That version of you is already finished with the first draft. That version of you has already made the first sale. They are already reaping the rewards. They are already on to the next thing. They are living the life you are still planning to live. But you are still here, adjusting the font size on your document headers. Reorganizing the Trello board for the 5th time, waiting for a signal that is never going to come, waiting for permission. You have been waiting for the perfect start. You have been waiting for the moment when you feel 100% ready, 100% confident, and 100% sure of the outcome. I am here to tell you something that might hurt, but it is necessary surgery. That moment does not exist. The perfect start is a myth invented by your fear to keep you safe. And by safe, I mean stagnant. By safe, I mean invisible. By safe, I mean exactly where you are right now, forever. You are caught in a loop of cognitive safety. Your brain is designed to protect you from risk. It is an ancient biological machine wired for survival, not for greatness. And to your primitive brain, starting is a risk. Starting means you might fail. Starting means you might be judged. Starting means you have to face the reality of your skills, rather than the fantasy of your potential. As long as you are planning, you are perfect. Your plan has no flaws because it hasn't touched reality yet. But the moment you start, you become imperfect. You become vulnerable. So your brain offers you a deal. It says, hey, let's not start yet. That's scary. Let's just plan to start. Planning feels good. Planning is safe. No one judges a plan. No one rejects a plan. Let's stay here in the warm womb of preparation. And you took the deal. You take the deal every single morning. You trade the risk of failure for the certainty of mediocrity. But the cost of that deal is your life. The cost is your dreams dying a slow, quiet death by suffocation, under a pile of unread self-help books and unfinished to-do lists. The cost is the slow erosion of your self-trust. Every time you say, I'm going to start, and then you don't, you teach yourself that your word means nothing. You teach yourself that you are a dreamer, not a doer. Let's look closely at the 3 archetypes of the professional preparer. You likely see yourself in one, or perhaps all, of them. First, there is the academic. The academic believes that success is a knowledge problem. They think they need another certification, another degree, another course, before they are qualified to start. They hoard information like a dragon hoards gold, terrified that if they start without knowing everything, they will be exposed as a fraud. They are suffering from imposter syndrome, but they are treating it with information instead of action. They don't realize that competence comes from doing, not from studying. You cannot learn to swim by reading a textbook on fluid dynamics. Eventually, you have to get wet. Second, there is the gearhead. The gearhead believes that success is a tool problem. They are obsessed with finding the perfect software, the perfect camera, the perfect microphone, the perfect productivity app. They spend weeks researching the difference between Notion and Evernote. They watch hours of reviews on lenses. They believe that the tool makes the artist. They are using technology as a shield against vulnerability. They tell themselves, I can't start the podcast until I have the Shure SM7B microphone. ignoring the fact that people are building empires using the voice memo app on their iPhones. They are optimizing a workflow for work that doesn't exist. Third, there is the visionary. The visionary loves the big idea. They love the whiteboard sessions. They love telling people about the grand vision of what they are going to build. They get high on the fantasy of the result. But they are allergic to the process. They hate the messy, boring, unglamorous details of execution. They want the finished building, but they don't want to mix the cement. They are addicted to the potential of their idea, and they are terrified that if they actually try to build it, the reality will fall short of the fantasy. So they keep the idea in the clouds, where it remains perfect and safe and unreal. Which one are you? Are you hiding behind books? Are you hiding behind tools? Or are you hiding behind the fantasy? It doesn't matter which one you are, because the cure is the same. The cure is to recognize that preparation has become a form of resistance. It has become the enemy. Welcome to Praxis Sleep. We are not here to help you plan. We are not here to help you organize your desk. We are not here to give you another strategy to think about. We are here to stage an intervention. We are here to break the loop. We are going to dismantle the preparation trap piece by piece. We are going to look at the biology of your fear, not to coddle it, but to override it. We are going to expose the lie of research for what it truly is: procrastination in a tuxedo. You do not need more information. You are drowning in information. You are starving for action. You are suffering from information constipation. You have taken in so much input and produced zero output that your creative system is backed up and toxic. The only way to clear it is to start outputting, even if it's bad, even if it's messy, especially if it's messy. If you are tired of being the most prepared person in the room who has nothing to show for it, if you are tired of the polished, perfect, empty notebook, if you are tired of watching less talented, less prepared, less intelligent people succeed simply because they had the audacity to start messy while you were still font matching your slide deck, then you are ready for this manifesto. We are going to kill the overthinking, not by calming your mind. You can't think your way out of overthinking. That's like trying to put out a fire with gasoline. We are going to kill it by force. We are going to kill it with movement. We are going to introduce you to a new way of operating, a way that prioritizes motion over comfort, a way that bypasses the reader brain entirely and hotwires the doer. The time for preparation is over. The time for the perfect start is dead. You have been waiting for permission. This is it. This is the sign you have been looking for. Let's burn the plan. Let's start the work. The certainty trap. If the professional preparer is the architect of the prison, the certainty trap is the mortar that holds the bricks together. It is the invisible force field that keeps you locked inside your immaculate office, staring at your perfect plan, unable to open the door to the messy, unpredictable world outside. You have built the perfect environment. You have the tools, you have the knowledge, you have the desire, but you are still frozen. Why? Because you are waiting for a guarantee. You are waiting for a sign from the universe, a stamp of approval, a notarized document that says, if you take this specific action, you will achieve this specific positive result, and you will not experience pain, embarrassment, or loss. You are trying to solve the equation of your life before you have even written down the variables. You are trying to peer into the future and eliminate all risk before you take a single step in the present. You believe that if you just think hard enough, if you just analyze the data long enough, if you just run enough mental simulations, you can find the perfect path, the path with no potholes, no detours, and no cliffs. This is the certainty trap. It is the false belief that certainty is a prerequisite for action. It is the conviction that you need to know how it ends before you can begin. But here is the brutal truth that the reader in you refuses to accept. Certainty is a luxury of the retrospective. Certainty only exists in the past tense. You can be certain about what you did yesterday. You can never, ever be certain about what will happen tomorrow. The future is, by definition, a fog of probability. And by demanding certainty before you act, you are demanding the impossible. You are arguing with the fundamental nature of reality. And you are losing. Let's look at the anatomy of this trap. It usually starts with a question. A simple, insidious question that loops in your mind at 3 a.m. What if? What if I launch this product and no one buys it? What if I write this book and the reviews are terrible? What if I quit my job to start this business and I run out of money in 6 months? What if I choose strategy A but strategy B was actually the better choice? These questions sound like due diligence. They sound like risk assessment, but they are not. They are dread inflation. They are your brain taking a small, manageable uncertainty and pumping it full of catastrophic helium until it becomes a giant, terrifying monster that blocks out the sun. You aren't just asking, what if I fail? You are asking, what if I fail and everyone laughs at me, and I lose my house and I never recover and I die alone? You are catastrophizing. You are taking a possibility, failure, and turning it into a certainty, ruin. And because the potential pain of that ruin feels so real, so visceral, your brain slams on the brakes. It triggers the freeze response. It says it is safer to stay here, in the dissatisfaction we know, than to risk the catastrophe we imagine. This leads us to the pathology of the maximizer. In psychology, there is a distinction between two types of decision makers: satisficers and maximizers. A satisficer looks for a solution that is good enough. They have a criteria for success, and once they find an option that meets that criteria, they choose it and move on. They don't worry about whether there might be a slightly better option out there. They prioritize speed and progress over perfection. A maximizer, on the other hand, is obsessed with making the best possible choice. They need to know that they have examined every single alternative. They need to compare every feature, every review, every potential outcome. They are terrified of buyer's remorse. They believe that there is one single optimal path, and if they miss it, they have failed. You, my friend, are a maximizer. You are maximizing your way into paralysis. You aren't just trying to pick a domain name. You are trying to pick the perfect domain name that captures your brand essence for the next 50 years. You aren't just trying to choose a workout plan. You are trying to find the scientifically optimal regimen that maximizes hypertrophy while minimizing cortisol. You are treating every decision, no matter how small, as if it were a life-or-death surgical procedure. The cost of being a maximizer is enormous. It is a massive tax on your cognitive energy. While the satisficer has made 10 decisions and moved 10 steps forward, you are still standing at the starting line, hyper-analyzing the tread on your shoes. You are exhausted, not from running, but from thinking about running. This brings us to the cost of open loops. Every decision you delay, Every project you put on hold while you wait for certainty creates an open loop in your brain. It is like a browser tab running in the background, consuming RAM. Your subconscious mind is constantly scanning these open loops, checking them, worrying about them. Did I decide on the logo yet? No. Did I email that potential mentor? No. Did I finalize the chapter outline? No. This creates a state of chronic, low-grade anxiety. It creates decision fatigue. You feel tired all the time, even though you haven't physically done anything. You are suffering from cognitive congestion. Your mental highway is gridlocked with decisions you are afraid to make. And here is the irony. The act of not deciding is often more costly than making the wrong decision. If you make a wrong decision, say, you pick the wrong email marketing software, you will find out quickly. You will try to use it. It will frustrate you, and you will switch. You have gained data. You have learned. You have moved from theory to reality. The cost was perhaps $50 and a few hours. But if you don't decide, if you spend 3 weeks reading reviews of email marketing software, you have gained nothing. You have learned nothing. You have spent 3 weeks of mental energy, 3 weeks of opportunity cost, and you are exactly where you started. You haven't paid $50. You have paid 3 weeks of your life. Indecision is the thief of time. It steals your life in increments of, let me think about it. We need to shatter the illusion of the perfect path. You believe that life is a maze, and if you take the wrong turn, you hit a dead end and die. You believe there is a correct sequence of moves that unlocks the treasure. But life is not a maze. Life is a canvas. There are no wrong turns, only different strokes. Some strokes are bold, some are messy, some you might want to paint over later. But you cannot paint a masterpiece by staring at the blank canvas and terrified of picking the wrong color. You are waiting for the fear to go away. You think, once I'm confident, then I'll start. This is backward. This is the reader's logic. Confidence does not produce action. Action produces confidence. The confidence you are looking for, the feeling of, I can do this, is a result. It is the reward you get after you have faced the uncertainty and survived. You cannot get the reward before you do the work. You cannot feel the warmth of the fire before you carry the wood. You are waiting to feel safe, but safety is stagnation. Growth requires risk. Growth requires uncertainty. The very definition of an adventure is that the outcome is unknown. If the outcome were certain, it wouldn't be an adventure. It would be an itinerary. And itineraries are boring. Let's talk about analysis paralysis as a defense mechanism. Deep down, your brain knows that as long as you are analyzing, you are safe from judgment. You can't fail a feasibility study. You can't get rejected by a spreadsheet. As long as you are in the research phase, your dream remains pure. It remains perfect. It remains a beautiful, shining possibility. But the moment you act, the moment you launch, the moment you publish, your dream collides with reality, and reality is messy. Reality has friction. Reality has critics. Reality has bugs. So you stay in analysis to protect the dream. You overthink because you are grieving the loss of the fantasy. You are mourning the death of the perfect potential that must occur for the imperfect reality to be born. But you must kill the fantasy to birth the reality. You must sacrifice the perfect idea on the altar of the good enough execution. There is a concept in military strategy called the OODA loop: observe, orient, decide, act. Speed is the weapon. The pilot who cycles through this loop faster than the enemy wins. It doesn't matter if the decision is 100% perfect. What matters is that it is fast enough to disrupt the enemy and allow for a new observation. You are stuck in the OO loop. Observe, orient, observe, orient, observe, orient. You never decide. You never act. You are a pilot flying in circles, burning fuel, while the enemy, time, regret, entropy, is locking onto you. You need to become a satisficer. You need to embrace the philosophy of good enough. Good enough is not a settling. It is not mediocrity. Good enough is a strategic tool for speed. It is the recognition that diminishing returns set in quickly. The difference between a 90% perfect decision and a 95% perfect decision might take you 3 months to figure out. Is that 5% worth 3 months of your life? Almost never. The certainty trap tells you that you need a map. But you don't need a map, you need a compass. A map shows you the exact route, every turn, every landmark. A map requires the territory to be known and static. But the territory of your life, of the market, of creativity is unknown and shifting. A map is useless if the terrain changes. A compass only shows you one thing: direction. It tells you where north is. It doesn't tell you there's a swamp in front of you. It doesn't tell you there's a mountain. It just says go that way. And that is all you need. You need to know north. You need to know the general direction of your goal. And then you need to start walking. When you hit the swamp, you don't stop and wait for a map. You look at your compass, you walk around the swamp, and you keep moving north. You figure it out en route. You build the plane while you are flying it. This terrifies the reader. Build the plane while flying it? That sounds dangerous. Yes, it is dangerous. It is also the only way planes get built in the real world of innovation, because you cannot know how the plane flies until it is in the air. You cannot know if the business works until you sell something. You cannot know if the book is good until you write it. The certainty trap is a cage made of questions. Am I ready? Is this the right time? Do I know enough? The answer to all of these questions is no. You are never ready. It is never the right time. You never know enough. And you must start anyway. You must develop a tolerance for ambiguity. You must learn to sit with the discomfort of not knowing. You must make friends with the knot in your stomach. That knot isn't a stop sign. It's a sensor. It means you are entering new territory. It means you are growing. When you feel the urge to overthink, to research one more thing, to check one more review, recognize it for what it is. It is fear. It is the certainty trap snapping shut. Don't argue with it. Don't try to outlogic it. Just step over it. Make a decision, any decision. Pick the font. Pick the software. Pick the title. Flip a coin if you have to. Just close the loop. Free up the RAM. Action clears the fog. When you stand still, the fog of uncertainty surrounds you. You can't see 5 feet in front of you. But when you take a step, the fog moves. You can see 5 feet further. And then you take another step, and another. You navigate the fog by moving through it, not by waiting for it to lift. You have spent enough time in the trap. You have analyzed the bars of the cage long enough. You know the texture of the floor. You know the smell of the air. You are an expert on your own imprisonment. It is time to open the door. It is unlocked. It has always been unlocked. The only thing holding it closed was your grip on the handle, pulling it tight, trying to make sure it was the right door. Push. Step out. Into the uncertainty. Into the risk. Into the work. Because the only thing you can be certain of is this. If you stay in the trap, you will die there. You will die with your song unsung, your book unwritten, your business unbuilt. You will die a professional preparer. And that is a fate far worse than failure. The motion paradox. There is a cruel irony that plagues the modern world, a paradox that specifically targets the intelligent, the creative, and the ambitious. It is this. The smarter you are, the more likely you are to fail at starting. We are taught from a very young age that thinking is a virtue and impulsivity is a vice. We are taught to look before we leap, to measure twice, cut once, to think it through. In school, the students who sat quietly, analyzed the problem, and produced the perfect answer were rewarded with gold stars. The students who jumped in messy, who experimented, who guessed, were often corrected or penalized. We were trained to be good students. We were trained to believe that the solution to any problem is found in the mind. And for 90% of life, for solving math equations, for writing essays, for analyzing history, that training works. But when it comes to creating something new, when it comes to building a business, writing a book, or changing the trajectory of your life, that training becomes a prison. This is the motion paradox. You cannot think your way out of a prison that you thought your way into. The walls of your paralysis are built of thoughts. They are constructed from your own intelligence, your own ability to foresee consequences, your own capacity to simulate future scenarios. And because you are smart, your simulations are vivid. You can see the failure in high definition before you have even taken the first step. You can see the criticism. You can see the financial loss. You can see the embarrassment. Your intelligence, which should be your greatest asset, has become your jailer. You are suffering from the intellectual's curse. The ability to visualize the future is a superpower, but without the counterbalance of action, it becomes a disability. You are using your high IQ to construct elaborate, impenetrable cages for yourself. You are running simulations of reality that are so convincing, you mistake them for reality itself. You think, I know how this will end, so why bother starting? But you don't know, you have a hypothesis, and a hypothesis without an experiment is just a guess wrapped in ego. The core of the paradox lies in the arrow of action. Most people operate under a false model of human behavior. They believe the arrow points like this: think to feel to act. This is the reader's model. 1. Think. You analyze the situation. You gather information. You formulate a perfect plan. 2. Feel. You wait for the plan to give you a feeling of confidence. You wait to feel ready, motivated, and safe. 3. Act. Once you feel those things, you finally take action. This model sounds logical. It sounds responsible. It is also completely broken when applied to creative or entrepreneurial endeavors. Why? Because the feeling step is a chasm. You can think all day, but the thought alone will rarely generate the feeling of readiness when you are facing the unknown. In fact, the more you think about, the unknown, the less ready you feel. The more you stare at the cliff, the higher it looks. The longer you analyze the risks, the more dangerous they seem. The think-to-feel connection is a feedback loop of anxiety. The thinking creates doubt. The doubt creates fear, a feeling, and the fear blocks the action. The reader spends their entire life stuck between step 1 and step 2, trying to think hard enough to feel brave enough to act. They buy more books, hoping the next one will trigger the feeling. They organize their desk, hoping the clarity of the environment will trigger the feeling. But the feeling never comes, because courage is not an intellectual state. Courage is a behavioral state. The doer operates under a completely different model. They have inverted the arrow. Their model looks like this. Act to feel to think 1. Act. You take a small, imperfect physical step into the real world. You do not wait for permission. You do not wait for clarity. You move. 2. Feel. The action produces a result. It produces feedback. It breaks the tension. Suddenly, you feel a shift. The fear dissipates because you are no longer simulating the monster. You are fighting it. You feel energized by the momentum. You feel capable because you just proved you are capable. 3. Think. Now you analyze. You look at the result of your action. You see what worked and what didn't. You adjust your strategy based on real-world data, not hypothetical fears. This inversion is the key to the praxis leap. You must stop waiting to feel like acting. You must act to change how you feel. Action is not just the effect of motivation, it is the cause of it. Action is not just the result of confidence, it is the generator of it. This is a biological reality. When you take action, when you physically move, when you speak, when you hit publish, your brain releases dopamine. It signals that you are affecting your environment. It signals agency. That neurochemical shift changes your state. It clears the fog. You literally cannot think yourself into that state. You have to move yourself into it. Consider the metaphor of the bicycle. When a bicycle is standing still, it is incredibly unstable. If you sit on a stationary bike and try to balance, you have to constantly micro-adjust, jerking the handlebars left and right, tense and wobbling. It takes a tremendous amount of mental and physical energy just to keep from falling over. This is you in, quote, preparation mode. You are expending massive amounts of energy just to stay upright, analyzing every wobble, terrified of the crash. But what happens when you start pedaling? The moment you have forward momentum, the bike stabilizes. The physics of the gyroscope take over. Balance becomes effortless. Steering becomes smooth. You can look ahead instead of staring at your feet. You are trying to balance the bike of your life while standing still. You are overthinking the steering because you have no momentum. The motion paradox states that the hardest part of the journey is the first inch, because that is where the instability is highest. Once you are moving, the problems you are agonizing over, how will I steer around that rock in 3 miles, become easily solvable in the moment. Momentum is a form of intelligence. Speed is a form of safety. The reader believes that slowness is safe because it allows for precision. But in a fast-moving world, slowness is death. While you are carefully aiming your shot, the target has moved. While you are perfecting your business plan, the market has shifted. While you are editing your first chapter for the 10th time, Someone else has published a good enough book and is already building an audience. We must talk about the difference between data and noise. This is crucial for the intellectual mind to understand, because the intellectual mind loves data. When you are in the preparation phase, you believe you are gathering data. You read a review of a software tool that feels like data. You read a biography of a successful person that feels like data. You study a competitor's website that feels like data. But it is not data, it is noise. Why? Because it is context-free. It is information about other people's reality, not yours. It is theoretical. Until you actually try to sell something, you have zero data on whether your product will sell. Until you actually write a blog post, you have zero data on whether people want to read your voice. The only way to generate true, actionable data is through action. When you launch a draft mode version of your project, you get real feedback. You find out that customers hate the price, or they love the logo but don't understand the tagline. That is data. That is gold. You can work with that. You can iterate on that. When you sit in your room thinking, I wonder if people will like this, you are generating noise. You are spinning scenarios that have no basis in reality. You are arguing with ghosts. This brings us to the philosophy of draft mode. Overthinking is often just perfectionism in a tuxedo. It is the fear that if you produce something imperfect, you will be revealed as incompetent. You treat every piece of work as if it were a final exam, a verdict on your soul. The doer treats everything as a draft. A draft is not a failure, it is a probe. It is a question asked to the universe, is this the right direction? A draft is expected to be messy. It is expected to have bugs. It is expected to be incomplete. When you live in draft mode, you are immune to the paralysis of perfectionism because you have redefined the goal. The goal is not perfection. The goal is iteration. You are not building a statue. You are growing a garden. A statue must be perfect before it is unveiled. A garden starts with dirt and seeds and messy sprouts, and it grows into beauty over time through pruning and tending. You are treating your life like a statue when you should be treating it like a garden. The motion paradox also reveals the lie of risk. The reader perceives action as risky. If I start, I might fail. The doer understands that inaction is the greater risk. There is a concept called the risk of invisibility. Every day you spend preparing is a day you are invisible to the people you want to serve, to the opportunities that might find you, to the luck that strikes only those in motion. You are safe in your bunker, yes, but you are also buried alive. The risk of posting a bad article is small. A few people might ignore it. The risk of never posting an article is total. You guarantee your voice is never heard. Let's go deeper into the neuroscience of the loop. Your brain is a prediction engine. It is constantly trying to predict what will happen next to keep you safe. When you have no recent data, because you haven't done anything new in months, your brain's predictions become skewed towards anxiety. In the absence of information, the brain defaults to fear. It fills the void with monsters. When you take action, you feed the prediction engine with fresh data. Oh, I made that sales call and he didn't yell at me. He just said, not right now. Your brain updates its model, sales calls are not life-threatening events. The fear recedes. The next call becomes easier. This is why you cannot think your way out of fear. Thinking without new data just recycles old fears. Action breaks the cycle by proving the fears wrong. You are conducting exposure therapy on your own ambition. You must become a scientist of your own life. A scientist does not sit in an armchair and argue about what might happen in the test tube. They run the experiment. If the experiment fails, they don't say, "I am a failure." They say, "Interesting. That hypothesis was wrong. Let's try a different variable." You are treating your experiments as identity crises. If this business idea fails, I am a failure. If this article gets no likes, I am unlovable. This fusion of work and identity is the cement in your shoes. You must separate them. You are the scientist. Your projects are just the experiments. Some will work, some won't. Your worth is in the running of the lab, not the result of a single test tube. The motion paradox demands that you accept a certain amount of waste. The reader wants 100% efficiency. They want every minute spent preparing to contribute directly to the final result. They don't want to write a page that gets deleted. They don't want to build a prototype that gets scrapped. But waste is the price of quality. You have to write 50 bad pages to find the 5 good ones. You have to kiss a lot of frogs. The doer is willing to be inefficient in the short term, making mistakes, scrapping drafts, to be effective in the long term, finding the solution that actually works. The reader is perfectly efficient at doing nothing. Ask yourself, would you rather have a messy, imperfect, chaotic life that is moving forward, or a pristine, organized, perfect life that is standing still? The motion paradox tells us that clarity comes from movement. Think of driving a car at night. Your headlights only show you the next 200 feet. You can't see the destination. You can't see the town 3 hours away. The reader says, "I can't start driving until I can see the entire road all the way to the destination." So they sit in the driveway, revving the engine, studying the map, waiting for the sun to rise. The doer says, "I can see 200 feet, that's enough." They drive the first 200 feet, and guess what? The lights reveal the next 200 feet. You get clarity as you go. You get the map by walking the territory. You have been waiting for the big insight that will make everything clear. You think that if you just read one more book, the clouds will part, and a voice from the heavens will say, "This is your path, and here is exactly how to walk it." That insight is not coming. The insight you need is hidden inside the work you are avoiding. The answer to "what should I do with my life" is found in the doing, not the thinking. The reader wants to find their passion. The doer knows that passion is built, not found. You build passion by getting good at something. You get good at something by doing it repeatedly. Action leads to competence. Competence leads to passion. The arrow is inverted again. So how do we apply this motion paradox to your life right now? It requires a vow of imperfection. You must consciously lower your standards for the start. You must agree to produce C work. C work is infinitely better than A+ potential. C work exists. It can be improved, it can be edited, it can be sold. A+ potential is a ghost. You must embrace the minimum viable action, not the minimum viable product. That's business speak. I mean the minimum viable action. What is the smallest, dumbest, most insignificant thing you can do right now that counts as motion? Is it opening a Google Doc and naming it? Is it buying the domain name? Is it sending one text message? Do not look for the high-leverage move. That is a trap for smart people. Look for the low-friction move. Momentum is heavy. Getting the flywheel to turn the first inch takes more energy than the next 10 revolutions combined. You don't need a smart move to start. You just need a move. Any move. A dumb move. A wrong move. Just move. Because once you are moving, you are no longer a stationary target for your own doubts. It is harder to hit a moving target. Your inner critic is a sniper, but he needs you to stand still. When you are bobbing and weaving, when you are iterating and testing, he can't get a bead on you. You have spent 6 months building a prison of thought. You have decorated the walls with plans. You have paved the floor with good intentions. You have barred the windows with what-ifs. But the door is unlocked. It has always been unlocked. The only thing holding it shut is your belief that you need to be ready to walk through it. You will never be ready. You will only be in motion. Stop thinking. Start moving. The thinking will take care of itself after the doing. The feeling will follow the feet. Invert the arrow. Break the paradox. The feedback loop. Why maps fail and compasses win. If the certainty trap is the prison of the mind, the linear fallacy is the shackle around your ankles. It is the pervasive, stubborn, and utterly incorrect belief that success is a straight line. It is the conviction that the path from where you are, point A, to where you want to be, point Z, is a direct, predictable, and pavable highway. The professional preparer spends months, sometimes years, trying to draw this line. You sit in your room with your expensive notebook and your color-coded calendar, and you try to plot every single step. Step 1 leads to Step 2. Step 2 leads to Step 3. You try to anticipate every obstacle, every detour, every potential failure, and you try to solve them in advance. You believe that if you just plan hard enough, you can eliminate the chaos of reality. You believe that a good plan survives contact with the enemy. But military strategists have known the truth for centuries. No plan survives contact with the enemy, and in the war of art, business, and life, the enemy is reality. Reality is messy. Reality is chaotic. Reality is non-linear. The moment you take your perfect plan out of the vacuum of your office and expose it to the atmosphere of the real world, it begins to disintegrate. The reader reacts to this disintegration with panic. When Step 2 doesn't lead to Step 3, when the software crashes, when the customer says no, when the chapter doesn't write itself, the reader collapses. They think, my plan was wrong. I failed. I need a better plan. So they retreat. They go back to the bunker to draw a new, even more detailed map. They restart the overthinking loop. The doer reacts differently. The doer expects the disintegration. The doer knows that the line on the paper is a fiction. The doer understands the fundamental physics of navigation. You cannot steer a stationary ship. We need to replace your linear operating system with a feedback operating system. We need to stop trying to be cartographers and start being pilots. Let's look at the metaphor of the airplane. This is the practical lesson that changes everything. Imagine you are flying a plane from New York to London. You have a flight plan. You know the destination. You have the fuel. you take off. Here is the terrifying statistic that every pilot knows. For 90% of the flight, the plane is technically off course. The wind pushes it north. The air pressure pushes it south. Turbulence knocks it sideways. If the pilot, or the autopilot, simply locked the steering wheel in the perfect position calculated on the ground and went to sleep, the plane would not land in London. It would land in Iceland, or it would crash into the ocean. But the plane does land in London. It lands safely almost every time. How? Because the system is not designed to be perfect. It is designed to be corrective. The autopilot is constantly measuring the deviation. I am 1 degree too far north. It corrects. Now, I am 1 degree too far south. It corrects. The flight is not a straight line. It is a continuous, never-ending zigzag of error and correction, error and correction. The success of the journey depends entirely on the feedback loop. It depends on the plane's ability to sense that it is wrong and its ability to adjust. You are trying to fly to London without ever being off course. You are trying to lock the steering wheel on the ground and hope for the best. You are terrified of the wind of reality. You think that being off course means you have failed. But being off course is not failure. It is the default state of movement. The reader wants a map. A map is a static document. It describes a territory that has already been explored, measured, and codified. It shows you exactly where the bridge is, where the river bends, where the mountain peaks. A map is useful if you are driving to the grocery store. It is useful if you are doing something that has been done 1,000,000 times before in exactly the same way. But you are not driving to the grocery store. You are trying to build a life. You are trying to create art. You are trying to start a business. You are entering unmapped territory. The territory of your potential is unknown. The market conditions of next year are unknown. The person you will become after you face your fears is unknown. You cannot have a map for a terrain that changes under your feet. If you try to follow a rigid map in a shifting terrain, you will walk off a cliff. You will be so focused on the paper that you will ignore the reality. You will say, "But the map says there should be a bridge here," as you drown in the river. The doer does not carry a map. The doer carries a compass. A compass is a dynamic tool. It does not tell you where the bridge is. It does not tell you how deep the river is. It does not tell you how long the journey will take. It tells you one thing, and one thing only: direction. It tells you where north is. And that is all you need. If your north is write a novel, the compass points you there. It doesn't give you the plot. It doesn't give you the characters. It just points. You start walking. You hit a swamp, writer's block. The map would say error, no swamp en route. The compass just points north. So you walk around the swamp. You get muddy. You get lost for a bit. But you keep checking the compass. And you keep moving north. Eventually you find high ground. You didn't plan the route around the swamp. You discovered it. This is the power of the feedback loop. You generate the path by walking it. The reader sits at home, waiting for the path to appear. I need clarity, they say. I need to know exactly how this is going to work. But clarity does not precede action. Action precedes clarity. Think about driving a car at night. Your headlights only illuminate the next 200 feet of road. You cannot see the destination. You cannot see the town 3 hours away. If you operated like a reader, you would refuse to leave the driveway. You would say, I can't start the journey until I can see the entire road all the way to the end. You would sit there, revving the engine, waiting for a sun that isn't going to rise until you start moving. The doer says, I can see 200 feet, that's enough. They drive the first 200 feet, and guess what happens? The headlights move. They reveal the next 200 feet, and then the next. You can drive all the way across the country seeing only 200 feet at a time. You get clarity as you go. You earn the map by traversing the territory. This brings us to the mechanism of the feedback loop itself. It is a cycle of 3 parts. 1. Action, the stimulus. 2. Data, the response. 3. Correction, the adjustment. The reader breaks this loop at step 1. Because they are afraid of step 3, correction, they refuse to take step 1, action. They try to simulate step 2, data, in their heads. They think, if I launch this product, people might hate it. This is not data. This is a fantasy. This is a ghost story. You cannot get data from your imagination. You cannot get feedback from a plan. The universe only responds to energy. It only responds to movement. When you take an action, when you actually publish the post, make the call, ship the code, you generate a shockwave in reality. Reality must respond. It might respond with silence. No one cared. It might respond with criticism. Someone hated it. It might respond with money. Someone bought it. Whatever the response is, it is data. It is the most valuable commodity in the world. It is the fuel of the feedback loop. If you get silence, you adjust. Okay, the headline was boring, I'll try a louder one. If you get criticism, you adjust. Okay, the product has a bug. I'll fix it. If you get money, you adjust. Okay, that worked. I'll do more of it. The reader views negative data as a judgment on their soul. They hated it. I am a failure. I should stop. The doer views negative data as a navigational beacon. They hated it. Good. Now I know what not to do. I am one step closer to what works. This reframing is critical. You must stop viewing failure as an endpoint and start viewing it as a data point. There is a concept in military strategy called the OODA loop, developed by fighter pilot John Boyd. It stands for observe, orient, decide, act. In a dogfight, the pilot who cycles through this loop the fastest wins. It's not about who has the better plane. It's about who can process reality and adapt to it quicker. If you spend too much time observing and orienting, analysis paralysis, you die. You must decide and act to force the enemy to react, changing the situation, which gives you new things to observe. You are stuck in the OO loop. Observe, orient. Observe, orient. You are staring at the market. You are staring at your competitors. You are orienting your desk. You never decide. You never act. You are a sitting duck. To kill the overthinking, you must speed up your OODA loop. You must prioritize velocity of iteration over quality of initial attempt. This brings us to the philosophy of living in beta. In the software world, products are released in beta. They are not finished. They are buggy. They are imperfect. The developers know this. They release them anyway. Why? because they know that the users will find the bugs faster than the developers ever could. They outsource the discovery of error to reality. You need to treat your life, your projects, and your ambitions as beta software. You are waiting to release version 1.0 until it is perfect. You are waiting until there are no bugs. But you cannot find the bugs in a vacuum. By the time you release your perfect version 1.0, the market has moved on. The technology has changed. Your perfect product is obsolete. The doer releases version 0.1. It is ugly. It crashes. It has typos. But it is real. And because it is real, it generates feedback. The doer fixes the bugs. They release version 0.2, then 0.3. By the time the reader is finally ready to launch their perfect version 1.0, the doer is on version 5.0. They have a polished, market-tested, robust product that actually serves people. The reader's product fails immediately because it was built on assumptions, not data. Living in beta means giving yourself permission to be a work in progress. It means accepting that bugs are a feature of growth, not a sign of incompetence. It means realizing that the embarrassment of a typo is a small price to pay for the momentum of publication. The feedback loop also solves the imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome thrives in the dark. It thrives in the gap between who you think you should be and who you feel you are. It is a thought virus that says, you are a fraud because you don't know everything. But when you are in the feedback loop, you don't need to know everything. You just need to know the next thing. You are not claiming to be a guru, you are claiming to be an experimenter. An experimenter cannot be an imposter, because an experimenter is simply asking questions and recording answers. If you define yourself as the one who knows, you will always be terrified of being exposed. If you define yourself as the one who finds out, you are invincible. The reader tries to build a skyscraper from the top down. They want the penthouse view before they have poured the foundation. The doer builds a mud hut. Then they reinforce the walls. Then they add a room. Then they add a second floor. They iterate their way to the skyscraper. This approach requires a fundamental shift in how you view time. The reader views time as an enemy. I'm running out of time. I'm too old to start. If I mess this up, I'll lose months. This scarcity mindset creates pressure, and pressure creates paralysis. The doer views time as a resource for iteration. Every day is a representative. Every project is a set. You are going to the gym of life. You don't go to the gym to lift the heaviest weight once and then go home. You go to lift, fail, rest, and lift again. The failure is the workout. The feedback loop is the engine of mastery. No one is born a master. Mozart didn't write his greatest symphonies when he was 5. He wrote them after thousands of iterations. Picasso didn't paint Guernica as his first sketch. Mastery is not a lightning strike. It is a callus formed by the friction of doing. So how do we install this feedback operating system? It starts with shrinking the feedback window. The reader works on a project for 6 months before showing it to anyone. The feedback loop is 6 months long. If they miss the mark in month 1, they have wasted 5 months. That is catastrophic risk. The doer shrinks the loop to 24 hours. I will write a rough draft of the intro and show it to a friend today. If the intro is bad, they find out today. They have wasted 0 time. they fix it, and move on. You must become addicted to the micro-fail. You must seek out the no. You must hunt for the bug. Because every no is a pixel in the image of yes. Every bug found is a step toward stability. The map you have been drawing in your notebook is a beautiful lie. It shows a world that doesn't exist. It shows a straight line through a mountain range. Burn the map. Pick up the compass. Identify north, your goal. Take one step. Look at your feet. Did I step in mud? Look at the compass. Am I still heading north? Take another step. This is the only way to travel. It is messy. It is uncertain. It is scary. But it has one distinct advantage over the perfect plan. It actually gets you there. You have been waiting for the path to clear, but the path does not clear. The path is made by walking. The grass is beaten down by your boots. The undergrowth is hacked away by your machete. You are not the tourist on the paved road. You are the explorer in the jungle. Stop asking, what if it goes wrong? Start asking, how quickly can I fix it when it does? The first question breeds paralysis. The second question breeds resilience. The feedback loop is the ultimate safety net. You cannot fall far if you are constantly checking your footing. You cannot go wildly off course if you are constantly correcting your steering. Trust the loop. Trust the correction. Trust the process of messy, imperfect, rapid evolution. Stop planning the flight. Take off. And trust that you will figure out how to land. The ignition protocol: why willpower is a battery, but discipline is an engine. You now understand the philosophy. You understand that the perfect start is a myth designed to keep you safe in the harbor of preparation. You understand that the certainty trap is an impossible standard that paralyzes you before you can even begin. And you understand that the linear path is a fairy tale for tourists, while you, the explorer, must navigate by compass and feedback loop. You have the map, or rather the compass. You know north. You know that you need to move, iterate, and live in beta. But knowing is not doing. And this is where the reader usually falls off the cliff. The reader says, I get it. I need to start. I need to embrace imperfection. I am motivated. And they wake up on Monday morning, fueled by this new philosophy, ready to attack the work. They sit down at their desk. They open the laptop. They stare at the screen. And nothing happens. The screen is white. The cursor blinks. And suddenly the philosophy feels very far away. The motivation they felt while reading this manifesto evaporates like mist in the sun. A heavy, physical resistance settles in their chest. It feels like gravity has increased. The simple act of typing the first sentence feels like lifting 1,000 pounds. Why? Why is there such a massive, unbridgeable gap between knowing what to do and doing it? Why does the reader, armed with all the best strategies and all the right mindsets, still freeze at the moment of ignition? The answer lies in a fundamental misunderstanding of human energy. The reader is trying to power their actions with the wrong fuel source. They are trying to run a marathon on a sugar rush. They are relying on willpower. We need to have a serious, scientific conversation about willpower, because it is the single most unreliable resource you possess. Willpower is not a character trait. It is not a moral virtue. It is a biological battery, and it is a very, very small battery. Every decision you make throughout the day drains this battery. What should I wear? Drain. What should I eat for breakfast? Drain. Should I answer this email now or later? Drain. Should I take the highway or the back roads? Drain. By the time you sit down to do your deep work, the work that actually matters, the work that requires the ignition, your battery is often already in the red. You are suffering from decision fatigue. Your brain, trying to conserve energy, defaults to the path of least resistance. It defaults to the inbox. It defaults to research. It defaults to preparation. The reader believes that the solution is to get more willpower. They try to psych themselves up. They watch motivational videos. They drink more coffee. They try to force the engine to turn over by sheer mental grit. This is a losing battle. You cannot fight biology with grit. You will lose. You might win once, maybe twice, but you cannot build a career, a business, or a legacy on a fuel source that runs out every day at 10 a.m. The doer does not rely on willpower. The doer does not trust the battery. The doer builds an engine. An engine is mechanical. It is systemic. It does not care how you feel. It does not care if you are tired. It does not care if you are inspired. You turn the key, the spark plugs fire, the pistons pump, and the machine moves. We call this engine the ignition protocol. To understand why this protocol is necessary, we must look at the physics of static friction. Imagine a car that is broken down. It is sitting still on the asphalt. It weighs 3,000 pounds. You are behind it, trying to push it to the side of the road. When you first start pushing, it feels impossible. You are straining, sweating, digging your heels into the ground. You are exerting 100% of your available energy, and the car is not moving a single inch. This is static friction. The bond between the tires and the road is at its strongest when the object is stationary. The universe loves stasis. It wants things to stay exactly where they are. This is you at the start of a project. This is you at the start of every single work session. The static friction of your mind is immense. Your brain is at rest. It wants to stay at rest. The amount of energy required to go from 0 to 1 is disproportionately huge. But what happens if you keep pushing? Eventually the tires break free. The car inches forward. It starts to roll. And suddenly, a miracle of physics occurs. The car becomes lighter. You can stop straining. You can actually push it with one hand. You can jog alongside it. This is kinetic friction. Once an object is in motion, the friction drops dramatically. It takes almost zero energy to keep the car moving compared to the energy required to start it. The reader spends their entire life fighting static friction. They try to push the car every day, but they give up before the tires break free. Or worse, they push it a few inches, stop to prepare some more, let the car come to a complete halt, and then have to fight the static friction all over again. They are exhausted, burnt out, and demoralized, not because they did a lot of work, but because they spent all their energy on the start. The doer understands that the game is won or lost in those first 3 seconds. The doer knows that if they can just overcome the static friction, the kinetic friction will take over, and the work will become easy. The doer knows that 80% of the fuel is burned on the launch pad. So the doer does not leave the launch to chance. They do not leave it to how I'm feeling right now. They install a mechanical system designed to override static friction. This is where the ignition protocol comes in. You have likely heard of the 2-minute rule. It is a famous piece of productivity advice. If a task takes less than 2 minutes, do it now. Or, just commit to doing the work for 2 minutes, and then you can stop. This advice is well-intentioned. It is theoretically sound. It is based on the idea of lowering the barrier to entry. But for the chronic overthinker, for the professional preparer, the 2-minute rule often fails. Why? Because the 2-minute rule addresses the logic of the start, but it ignores the emotion of the start. Logically, you know you can write for 2 minutes, but emotionally, your brain knows it's a trick. Your brain knows that you intend to write for 3 hours. Your brain sees the mountain hiding behind the 2-minute molehill. And so, the resistance remains, the fear remains. The reader says, I'm not falling for that. I know this is going to be hard. I'm not ready. The ignition protocol is not a trick. It is a sequence. It is a neurological code that you input into your brain to disable the security system of fear and engage the drive gears of action. Think of a professional athlete. Think of a tennis player before they serve. They bounce the ball 3 times. They adjust their shirt. They spin the racket. They take a breath. Bounce, bounce, spin. Why do they do this? Are they preparing? No. They have served 1,000,000 times. They are running a pre-routine. This routine is a trigger. It tells the body and the mind, we are leaving the state of rest. We are entering the state of performance. It bypasses the conscious mind, which might be worried about the score or the crowd, and accesses the subconscious mind, which knows exactly how to hit the ball. It creates a Pavlovian response. The moment the ball bounces 3 times, the body knows what comes next. The body fires the serve before the mind has a chance to doubt it. You need a pre-routine for your work. You need an ignition protocol. You cannot just sit down and hope for focus. You must summon it. And you summon it not with incantations, but with mechanics. The ignition protocol is a specific, repeatable set of physical and mental actions that you perform every single time you are about to start deep work. It must be the same every time. It must be rigid. It must be non-negotiable. When you run the protocol, you are sending a signal to your reticular activating system, RAS. You are saying, the time for thinking is over. The time for doing has begun. You are manually shifting the gears of your mind from passive consumption to active creation. Without this protocol, you are naked in the storm. You are sitting at your desk with your browser open, vulnerable to every notification, every distraction, every intrusive thought. You are relying on willpower to keep you focused, and as we've established, your willpower is dead by 10 a.m. With the protocol, you are armored. You are enclosed in a system that propels you forward. Imagine what it would feel like to never struggle with the start again. Imagine sitting down at your desk, feeling that familiar wave of resistance, the digital fog, the mountain paralysis, and instead of fighting it, instead of negotiating with it, you simply press a button. You initiate the sequence. Step 1. Step 2. Step 3. And suddenly, without effort, without trying, you are working. The resistance is gone. The static is gone. The fear is silent. You are typing. You are building. You are creating. You have crossed the threshold of static friction, and you are gliding on the smooth pavement of kinetic friction. You are in flow. Flow is the state where the doer lives. In flow, time disappears. Self-consciousness disappears. The inner critic, that voice that has been tormenting you for 6 months, is silenced, not because you argued with it, but because you are moving too fast for it to catch you. The reader chases flow like a butterfly. They hope it lands on them. They wait for the muse. The doer hunts flow like a predator. They use the ignition protocol to trap it, cage it, and harness it on command. We are not going to give you the ignition protocol in this manifesto. That would be a disservice to you. Why? Because if I gave you the checklist right now, your reader brain would scan it, categorize it, judge it, and file it away. You would say, "That's interesting. I'll try that someday." You would treat it as information. But the ignition protocol is not information, it is installation. It is a tool that must be calibrated to your specific psychology. It is a sequence that must be practiced, refined, and ingrained until it becomes muscle memory. It is not something you read, it is something you install. At Praxis Leap, we don't just hand you a PDF of the protocol. We walk you through the installation process. We help you identify your specific static friction triggers. Are you a visual procrastinator who needs a clear space? Are you a digital hoarder who drowns in tabs? Are you a perfectionist paralyzer who fears the blank page? Depending on your archetype, your ignition protocol will be different. For some, it involves a physical change of state, standing up, moving. For others, it involves a digital lockdown sequence. For others, it involves a specific micro-commitment journal exercise. We help you build your engine. The reader thinks, "I can figure this out myself, I'll just make up a routine." And maybe you can, maybe you will create a routine, and maybe you will do it for 3 days. And then, on the 4th day, when you are tired, when the mountain looks particularly high, you will skip it. You will say, "I don't need the routine today." And just like that, you are back in the trap. You are back to relying on willpower. You are back to pushing the stationary car with your bare hands. The ignition protocol is designed to work when you don't want to work. It is designed for the bad days. It is designed for the days when you have zero motivation, zero inspiration, and zero energy. That is when you need the engine the most. An engine doesn't care if it's raining. It just runs. This is the gap between the amateur and the professional. The amateur waits for inspiration. The professional has a protocol. The amateur relies on the battery. The professional builds the engine. The amateur is a reader. The professional is a doer. You have spent enough time relying on your battery. You have spent enough time wondering why you burn out, why you start and stop, why you can't maintain momentum. It is not because you are weak. It is because you are unmechanized. You are a biological organism trying to do machine-level work without a mechanical advantage. The ignition protocol is that advantage. It is the lever that lifts the world. It is the spark that starts the fire. You know the what, action preparation. You know the why, invert the equation. You know the where, the feedback loop. The ignition protocol is the when, and the when is now. It is the tool that turns someday into today. It is the tool that turns I should into I did. Stop pushing the car. Stop praying for a tow truck. Stop waiting for the hill to slope downward. Get in the driver's seat. Insert the key. Turn the ignition. And let the engine do the work. The identity architecture. Why you cannot be a writer if you do not write. You have the philosophy. Action precedes clarity. You have the system, the feedback loop. You have the tool, the ignition protocol. On paper, you are invincible. You have everything you need to break the paralysis and start climbing the mountain. And if humans were robots, if we were simply machines that executed code based on the best available logic, this manifesto would end here. You would simply install the software and run the program forever. But you are not a robot. You are a biological organism driven by a complex, messy, and powerful force that sits deeper than logic, deeper than motivation, and deeper than willpower. You are driven by identity. And this brings us to the most dangerous phase of the praxis leap. This is the moment where most people slide back into the mud. You might use the ignition protocol for a week. You might make incredible progress for a month. But if you do not change your identity, the fundamental belief about who you are, your old self will eventually sabotage your new results. Think of your identity like a thermostat in a house. Let's say your internal setting is set to procrastinator, 70 degrees. You read this manifesto, you get fired up, and you start working like a high performer. You crank the heat up to 90 degrees. You are blazing through tasks. You are writing chapters. You are shipping code. But because your thermostat is still set to 70 degrees, your subconscious mind starts to panic. It says, this isn't right. This isn't us. We are working too hard. We are too exposed. So what does the thermostat do? It kicks on the AC. It manufactures an emergency. It creates a sudden wave of imposter syndrome. It convinces you that you deserve a break. It cools the room back down until you are comfortably back at 70 degrees, back to procrastinating, back to overthinking, back to being safe. You cannot outperform your self-image for long. You will always revert to the mean. The reader tries to solve this by changing the temperature, using force, hacks, and caffeine. The doer solves this by changing the setting on the thermostat. This section is about how to re-architect your identity. It is about moving from I am a person who is trying to write to I am a writer. It is about moving from I am hoping to start a business to I am an entrepreneur. The difference is not semantic. The difference is biological. The fallacy of affirmation. The reader loves affirmations. You stand in front of the mirror every morning, look yourself in the eye, and say, I am a millionaire. I am a successful author. I am a fitness model. You try to hypnotize yourself into a new identity. But deep down, your brain knows you are lying. Your brain is a smart machine. It requires evidence. If you tell yourself, I am a writer, but you haven't written a sentence in 3 weeks, your brain rejects the affirmation as spam. It creates cognitive dissonance. You actually feel worse because you are highlighting the gap between your words and your reality. You cannot think your way into a new identity. You cannot manifest a new self-image while sitting on the couch. You can only act your way into a new identity. This is the core mechanic of identity architecture. the vote. Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become. No single instance will transform your beliefs, but as the votes build up, so does the evidence of your new identity. When you use the ignition protocol and write for 20 minutes, you cast a vote for "I am a writer." When you choose the salad over the pizza, you cast a vote for "I am an athlete." When you ship the imperfect beta version instead of polishing it for another month, you cast a vote for "I am a maker." The reader casts votes for "I am a dreamer." Every book bought but not read is a vote. Every plan made but not executed is a vote. Every day spent researching without output is a vote for "I am a professional preparer." You have spent years casting votes for the wrong identity. That is why the overthinking feels so natural. It is the landslide winner of your current election. But the polls are never closed. You can start casting new votes today. You don't need a unanimous victory to win an election. You just need a majority. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to cast more votes for doer than you cast for reader. This leads us to the crucial distinction that defines your future, the amateur versus the professional. In his seminal work, The War of Art, Stephen Pressfield draws a line in the sand. There are amateurs and there are professionals. This has nothing to do with money. It has nothing to do with whether you have a contract or a salary. It has everything to do with your internal stance toward the work. The reader is an amateur. The doer is a professional. Let's dismantle the differences, because this is the blueprint for your new architecture. 1. The amateur waits for inspiration. The professional shows up. The amateur believes that creativity is a lightning strike. They wait for the mood to be right. They wait for the stars to align. If they don't feel like it, they don't work. They treat their ambition like a hobby, something they do when life allows it. The professional knows that inspiration is a byproduct of labor. The professional has a schedule. They clock in. They treat their ambition like a job, something they do whether they feel like it or not. They know that the muse only visits those who are already at their desks. 2. The amateur identifies with the outcome. The professional identifies with the process. The amateur works for the applause. They write the article because they want the likes. They start the business because they want the status. Because they are addicted to the external validation. They are terrified of failure. If the outcome is bad, they are bad. This fear makes them hesitate, overthink, and hide. The professional works for the practice. They write because they are a writer. They build because they are a builder. They detach their self-worth from the immediate result. If the article flops, the professional shrugs and writes the next one. Their identity is secure because it is rooted in the act of doing, not the result of the act. 3. The amateur lets life interrupt the mission. The professional organizes life around the mission. The amateur puts their work last. I'll write after I do the laundry, walk the dog, answer all my emails, and watch Netflix. Consequently, the work never happens. The amateur allows the chaos of the world to dictate their schedule. The professional puts the work first. They pay themselves first. They block out the deep work time and defend it with the ferocity of a mother bear protecting her cubs. They say no to social obligations that interfere with the mission. They understand that if they don't prioritize their dreams, no one else will. 4. The amateur seeks permission. The professional seizes power. The amateur is always waiting to be picked. They wait for a publisher to say their book is good. They wait for a boss to give them a promotion. They wait for an expert to tell them they are ready. The professional picks themselves. They self-publish. They start the side hustle. They declare themselves an expert by demonstrating expertise. They understand that in the modern world, permission is a relic. Authority is taken, not given. You must decide right now which one you are. Are you an amateur writer or a professional writer? Are you an amateur entrepreneur or a professional entrepreneur? The moment you decide to turn pro, everything changes. The overthinking begins to look ridiculous. Does a brain surgeon overthink whether to scrub in? No, it's the job. Does a garbage collector wait for inspiration to pick up the trash? No, it's the job. When you turn pro, the drama evaporates. The existential dread about whether you are good enough is replaced by the simple blue-collar reality of doing the work. I am a pro. I show up. I do the work. I go home. But how do you sustain this? How do you survive the transition? Because there is a gap. There is a dangerous valley between your old identity and your new one. We call this the void. When you first start acting like a pro, when you use the ignition protocol, when you ship beta work, when you ignore the perfect plan, you will feel like a fraud. This is imposter syndrome. The reader thinks imposter syndrome is a sign to stop. I feel like a fake, so I must be a fake. I should go back to preparing until I feel real. The doer knows that imposter syndrome is a sign of growth. You feel like an imposter because your actions have temporarily outpaced your self-image. You are acting like a writer, but your thermostat is still set to aspiring writer. This lag is inevitable. It takes time for the subconscious mind to count the new votes. During the void, you must rely on ritual. Ritual is the scaffolding of identity. It holds the structure up while the concrete sets. You need to create a uniform. Why do doctors wear white coats? Why do soldiers wear uniforms? It isn't just for identification, it is for transformation. When the jacket goes on, the identity shifts. You need a toggle. Maybe you put on a specific pair of headphones when it's time to build. Maybe you have a specific playlist that you only listen to when you are executing. Maybe you light a specific candle. It doesn't matter what it is. It matters that it signals to your brain, we are entering the pro arena. You need to curate your environment. Your environment dictates your default behavior. If your phone is on your desk, your default is distraction. If your desk is covered in bills and junk mail, your default is anxiety. The professional creates a cockpit. When you sit in the cockpit, all the controls you need are within reach, and all the distractions are blocked out. You don't need willpower to fly the plane. The plane is designed to be flown. Design your space so that the right action is the path of least resistance. If you want to write in the morning, leave your laptop open to the document the night before. If you want to work out, put your gym clothes in front of the bedroom door. Reduce the friction to start. Increase the friction to stop. You need to protect your input. The reader consumes junk food for the mind. They scroll social media, looking at other people's highlight reels, which only fuels their own insecurity and paralysis. Look how far ahead they are. I'll never catch up. The doer consumes high-octane fuel. They read biographies of people who struggled and succeeded. They listen to podcasts that break down the process, not just the result. They surround themselves with virtual mentors who normalize the struggle. You are the average of the 5 ideas you spend the most time with. If you spend time with ideas of fear, scarcity, and perfectionism, you will remain paralyzed. If you spend time with ideas of iteration, grit, and growth, you will move. This brings us to the concept of the compounding of identity. At the beginning, the curve is flat. You write for a week. You don't feel like a writer. You feel like a person typing words. You write for a month. You still feel shaky. But somewhere around month 3 or month 6, the curve bends. The votes pile up. The sheer weight of the evidence becomes undeniable. You look back and see a stack of pages. You see a launched website. You see a body of work. And your brain, the rational evidence counter, finally concedes. Okay, it says, I guess we do this now. I guess we are this person. And suddenly, the resistance drops. The thermostat resets to the new temperature. Now, it actually takes more energy to stop than to keep going. Now, not writing feels weird. Not building feels wrong. You have crossed the threshold. You have become the person who does the thing. But you have to survive the flat part of the curve. You have to survive the void. And the only way to survive the void is to trust the system over the feeling. I don't feel like a writer today. It doesn't matter. The protocol says I write at 8 a.m., so I write. I don't feel like a CEO today. It doesn't matter. The OODA loop says I need to make a decision, so I decide. This is the ultimate freedom. The freedom from your own fluctuating emotions. The reader is a slave to their mood. The doer is the master of their actions. We are almost at the end, but before we reach the final call, we must address the permanence gap. It is easy to start. Anyone can have a manic burst of energy and work for 12 hours straight. That is not what we are after. That is the crash and burn cycle. We are building a machine that runs forever. We are building a lifestyle, not a project. The goal is not to finish the book. The goal is to become a person who writes books. The goal is not to launch the product. The goal is to become a person who builds companies. When you shift your focus from the finite goal to the infinite identity, the pressure lifts. You aren't racing against the clock. You are simply practicing being you. And if you fail today, if you slip up, if you overthink, it doesn't destroy you because you are a pro, and pros have bad days. What do pros do after a bad game? They watch the tape. They learn, and they show up to practice the next morning. The reader fails once and quits because the failure proves they are a fraud. The doer fails and keeps going because the failure is just data for the next iteration. You are building a house. The ignition protocol is the hammer. The feedback loop is the blueprint. But identity is the foundation. If you build on the sand of hacks and willpower, the house will fall when the storm comes. If you build on the bedrock of I am a professional, the house will stand. You have the blueprints. You have the tools. Now you must pour the concrete. You pour it one vote at a time, one action at a time, one day at a time. Until the wet, messy, uncertain effort hardens into the solid, unshakable reality of who you have become. The launch protocol, the death of someday, and the birth of day one. We have arrived at the end of the manifesto, which means we have arrived at the most dangerous moment of your journey. This is the moment of synthesis. It is the moment where all the threads we have pulled, the traps of preparation, the illusions of certainty, the paradoxes of motion, the mechanics of feedback, the physics of ignition, and the architecture of identity must be woven together into a single, unbreakable rope. And you must use that rope to swing across the chasm that separates who you are from who you could be. But before you jump, we need to look at what happens if you don't. We need to look at the alternative. We need to walk down to the harbor of your potential and look at the ships that never sailed. Imagine a vast, beautiful harbor. The water is calm. The sun is shining. In the slips, there are hundreds of magnificent ships. They are built of the finest timber. Their hulls are polished to a mirror shine. Their masts are tall and strong. Their sails are made of the whitest, crispest canvas. These ships are named the novel I will write, the business I will start, the art I will create, the fit body I will build. They are perfect. They are flawless. They are the pride of the harbor. And they are rotting. If you look closer, below the waterline, you will see the barnacles of inaction eating away at the hull. You will see the woodworms of delay turning the sturdy timber into dust. You will see the sails, never unfurled, turning brittle and gray in the sun. These are ghost ships. They are vessels designed for the open ocean, designed to battle storms and discover new continents, that have been condemned to a slow, silent death by the safety of the dock. The reader is the harbor master. The reader walks the docks every day, polishing the brass, checking the ropes, admiring the lines of the ships. The reader says, "Look at these beautiful possibilities. Someday I will take them out. Someday, when the wind is perfect. Someday, when I have studied the maps a little more. Someday, when I feel ready." But the wind is never perfect. The maps are never finished. And ready is a feeling that only comes after you leave the harbor, not before. So the ships stay, and they rot, and eventually they sink right there in the shallow water, without ever having tasted the salt of the deep ocean. This is the tragedy of the professional preparer. You are not going to crash and burn. That would at least be a story. That would be an adventure. No, your fate is far more quiet and far more sad. You are going to rust. You are going to decay in the comfort of your own potential. You are going to sink in the harbor, weighed down by the heavy cargo of your unfulfilled intentions. We have spent 6 parts of this manifesto dismantling the mechanisms that keep you tethered to the dock. We expose the certainty trap, the lie, that you can know the outcome before you begin. We showed you that waiting for a guarantee is a form of madness, a demand for a static universe that does not exist. We inverted the motion paradox, proving that you cannot think your way into a new way of acting, but you can act your way into a new way of thinking. We showed you that momentum is the only cure for insecurity. We installed the feedback loop, replacing your rigid, fragile maps with a dynamic compass. We taught you to embrace the OODA loop, to fall in love with the beta version, and to treat failure not as a verdict, but as data. We gave you the ignition protocol, the mechanical engine, to override the static friction of your biology. We showed you that willpower is a battery that dies, but discipline is an engine that runs as long as you turn the key. And we built the identity architecture, showing you that you are not born a writer or an entrepreneur. You build that self through the accumulation of votes. You have the blueprints, you have the tools, you have the philosophy. The reader in you is currently stuffed full of actionable knowledge. And this is where the danger lies. Because actionable knowledge is not action. Knowing how to sail is not sailing. Buying a compass is not leaving the harbor. The reader wants to take this manifesto and file it away in the self-improvement folder of their brain. They want to say, wow, that was profound. I learned so much about why I overthink. I feel better now. They want to use this manifesto as another form of productive procrastination. They want to feel the dopamine hit of understanding the problem without the pain of solving it. Do not let that happen. Do not let these words become just another coat of polish on a rotting ship. We need to talk about the word someday. Someday is the most dangerous word in the English language. It is a narcotic. It soothes the pain of your current inaction with the promise of a future redemption. Someday I will start. Someday I will be ready. Someday I will have time. Someday is a lie. It is a concept invented by your fear to keep you docile. Look at a calendar. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Do you see someday on there? It does not exist. There is only today, and there is only never. Someday is code for never. When you say, I'll do it someday, you are not making a plan. You are making an excuse. You are negotiating a peace treaty with your own resistance. You are telling your dreams, not now, you are not important enough right now. And the terrifying truth about time is that it does not bargain, it does not wait. It just runs. Every day you spend preparing is a day you have spent dying. This sounds harsh. It is meant to be harsh. The reader needs to be shaken awake. You act as if you have infinite time. You act as if you can spend 6 months researching a font choice. You act as if the opportunity will wait for you to be ready. It will not. The market moves on. The idea gets executed by someone else, someone less talented, less prepared, but more in motion than you. The passion fades. The muscles atrophy. You are not just wasting time, you are wasting yourself. Every idea you suppress, every project you delay, every impulse you stifle creates a toxicity in your soul. It creates a backlog of unlived life, and that backlog turns into bitterness. It turns into envy. You start looking at the people who did launch, the people who are out there in the ocean, battling the storms, living the adventure, and you resent them. You critique them. You say, their work isn't even that good. I could do better. And you are right. You could do better. But you aren't. And they are. And that is the only difference that matters. So how do we kill someday? We kill it with the launch protocol. The launch protocol is not about getting ready. You are already too ready. You are over ready. You are stale. The launch protocol is about force. It is about forcibly ejecting yourself from the comfort of the harbor. It is about burning the boats. When ancient commanders landed on enemy shores, they would often burn their own ships. Why? Because as long as the ships were there, the soldiers had an out. They had a plan B. They could retreat. They could go back to safety. By burning the ships, the commander removed the option of retreat. The only way home was through the enemy. The only option was victory. This created a level of focus, ferocity, and commitment that is impossible to achieve when you have a safety net. You have too many safety nets. You have too many outs. You have structured your life to avoid the necessity of action. You need to burn your ships. You need to create a forcing function. A forcing function is a commitment you make to the external world that forces you to act, even if you are scared, even if you don't feel like it. It is throwing your backpack over the wall so that you have to climb over to get it back. The reader keeps their goals secret. "I'm working on something," they whisper. "I'll show it when it's ready. This is safe. If they quit, no one knows. No one judges." The doer makes their goals public. "I am launching this on November 1st. Now there is a clock. Now there is a reputation at stake. Now the fear of not launching becomes greater than the fear of launching." You have engineered a scenario where your reader brain has no choice but to hand the controls over to the doer. This is the essence of the launch protocol. Commit first. Figure it out second. This violates everything the professional preparer believes. The preparer wants to figure it out first, and then commit. But that is the trap. You will never figure it out in theory. You can only figure it out in practice. You book the venue before you have the speech written. You sell the ticket before you have the course built. You announce the release date before the draft is done. You put yourself on the hook. Is it scary? Yes, it is terrifying. But it is the only way to break the paralysis of overthinking. You cannot overthink when the deadline is staring you in the face. You have to act. You have to enter the OODA loop. You have to engage the ignition protocol. You have to become the professional. You are waiting for the fear to go away. I am here to tell you, the fear will never go away. The fear is a constant. It is a biological signal that you are doing something that matters. If you aren't afraid, you aren't stretching. If you aren't afraid, you are just repeating what you already know. The goal is not to be fearless. The goal is to act while you are afraid. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the judgment that something else is more important than fear. What is more important than your fear? Your potential, your contribution, the person you are meant to be, the life you are meant to live. This brings us to the final element of the manifesto, the gap. You have read or listened to 20,000 words. You have traveled through the anatomy of your own stagnation. You have seen the scaffolding of your prison. But there is still a gap. It is the gap between understanding and execution. It is the gap between reading the manifesto and living the manifesto. This gap is where 99% of people fail. They close the book, they turn off the audio, they say that was good, and then they open Instagram. And the strobe light turns back on. And the digital fog rolls back in. And the guilt spiral restarts. Within 24 hours, the clarity you feel right now will fade. The old habits will return. The old identity will reassert itself. Because, as we discussed in Part 6, your environment and your rituals dictate your identity. And if you go back to the same environment, the same rituals, and the same isolation, you will get the same results. You cannot do this alone. That is a hard truth for the intellectual to accept. You think you are smart enough to fix yourself. You think that now that you have the information, you can just apply it. But information is not the bottleneck, implementation is the bottleneck. Consistency is the bottleneck. You are fighting a war against millions of years of evolutionary biology, which wants you to be safe and lazy, and billions of dollars of algorithm engineering, which wants you to be distracted and passive. You are outgunned. You need allies. You need a stronghold. You need a system that exists outside of your own head. This is why Praxis Leap exists. Praxis Leap is not a course. It is not a library of videos for you to watch and forget. Praxis Leap is the launch pad. It is the environment designed specifically to bridge the gap between reader and doer. We do not just teach the ignition protocol, we run it together. We do not just talk about the feedback loop, we force you to ship your work and get the data. We do not just discuss identity architecture, we provide the community of doers that validates and reinforces your new self-image. When you join Praxis Leap, you are burning a boat. You are making a financial and energetic commitment that says, I am done with the harbor. I am setting sail. You are entering a space where someday is banned and day one is mandatory. You are surrounding yourself with people who are also climbing their mountains, people who will not let you retreat to the inbox, people who will call you out on your productive procrastination, people who will hold you to the standard of the professional. We have the tools you need, the advanced versions of the 5-minute rule, the deep dive focus architecture blueprints, the anti-fragile planning systems. But more importantly, we have the culture of execution. In Praxis Leap, we don't celebrate plans, we celebrate launches. We don't celebrate perfect notebooks, we celebrate messy first drafts. We don't celebrate being busy, we celebrate being effective. This is your invitation. But it is not an open invitation. It is a challenge. If you want to stay a reader, do not join. If you want to keep your perfect, unblemished potential safe in the harbor, do not join. If you want to keep talking about what you are going to do someday, do not join. You will hate it here. We will make you uncomfortable. We will demand motion. But if you are tired, if you are tired of the guilt, if you are tired of the brain fog, if you are tired of watching your life pass by from the sidelines, if you are ready to kill the overthinking, if you are ready to force yourself to take action now, then this is your moment. This is the tiny action that breaks the inertia. This is the vote for your new identity. The door is open, the engine is running, the tide is high. The ghost ships are rotting in the dock behind you. The open ocean is waiting. You have two choices. Choice 1. Close this manifesto. Go back to your inbox, feel the momentary relief of safety, and wake up tomorrow in the same prison, with the same guilt, looking at the same mountain. Choice 2. Take the leap. Join Praxis Leap, burn the boat, and wake up tomorrow as an architect, a pilot, a doer. There is no someday. There is only day one, and day one is today. Welcome to the work. Welcome to the reality. Welcome to Praxis Leap. Let's go.